So, what's the deal with 3iAtlas? I've really been wanting to know, so I decided to create a connection with the vehicle to see if I could get some information firsthand. If you're new to my channel, my name is Jennifer Lisa Vest. I'm a psychic medium, a medical intuitive, and I also have a background in astrophysics. So I've always been really fascinated by things going on in the sky. I am also a star seed, and so I've had a number of experiences connecting with star beings throughout my life. So, as somebody who works mystically, I tend to connect to beings and then receive information from them. I thought it would be a good idea to find out if I could connect directly with 3iAtlas and get any information about it. Now, the reason this is so fascinating is because when it first was identified by NASA back on July 1st, there was all this excitement in the international space community because this was only the third interstellar object to ever visit our solar system. And so it's very exciting for scientists to have new data to explore. And there was a lot of excitement around it. They were calling it a comet, maybe an asteroid, and just collecting data on it. But then something happened sometime in July, end of July. Two things happened. One thing that happened was a prominent Harvard astrophysicist decided to go on the record saying that he thought this might not be a comet, that it might be a spacecraft. Now, he didn't say that he definitively thought it was the case. He just raised the possibility. And this, of course, is considered very controversial because for some reason, our space scientists are never willing to talk about extraterrestrial origin objects. Although that has changed a little bit lately, right? We've had these NASA hearings in the last year where they've come forward and said, actually, we have talked to beings from other planets. We do have spacecraft. We have reverse engineered. And so even though they've started to kind of do this disclosure in the last few months and to admit that actually many governments are well aware of the existence of extraterrestrials, they still aren't willing to really openly discuss 3iAtlas. And so what do I mean by that? If you go to NASA's website, if you try to get information from like the European Space Agency or some of these places where we normally expect to get updates about interesting interstellar or stellar phenomenon, you'll notice that they haven't updated the information since July. There's actually, let me correct that. I did find a few things from early August. So we're talking about nearly 2 months of no new information about this object. So I think that's really interesting. I think that even if you don't believe in mediumship, you should find that interesting. Why we have this really interesting kind of space anomaly and they're not telling us anything about it. Why is that? Inquiring minds want to know, why aren't they telling us about it? So, I decided, I didn't just kind of decide to try to speak to 3iAtlas. What happened was the last few days when I was trying to get information from my guides about the political scene, which is what I normally post about, instead of giving me that, they kept talking to me about various star beings. And so I realized that maybe I was supposed to shift my focus to this. So let's get into it. What did 3iAtlas say to me? So I'm a channel and I connect to beings and then I receive information from them and then I, kind of translate it into English. Interesting thing about what I channeled is that I always record everything and then transcribe it and then use that for my notes. The recording disappeared. This will sometimes happen when my guides don't want me to share something. But I did ask them before that happened, what could I share and what could I not share? And so I did do a post yesterday about what I could share. And so today I'm just going to go into some more detail about what I can share, and I'm not going to share the stuff that I can't share. So the first thing I want to say is that this is not a comet. This is actually, a craft. And they are purposely making it look like a comet because they don't want to alarm us. They're also doing that because they don't trust us. We have a tendency to kind of shoot first and ask questions later. And so they don't want to encourage us to become so alarmed that we decide we need to try to shoot it out of the sky. They're especially concerned that we don't try to use Newtonian, I guess I can use the regular word here, nuclear warheads to shoot at it, because anytime a nuclear weapon is detonated, it damages the cosmos. It like damages, the way they put it, the fabric of space-time. So they're really invested in us not using nuclear weapons. And so they're trying to just minimize conflict by approaching us very slowly, giving the impression that they're, just a natural object floating through space. I did ask them, are you communicating with us? And they said, well, we're communicating through data. So we are sending data that your scientists are picking up. So they were talking about how we have all of these kind of like satellites and telescopes, and they showed this this image of like a big swimming pool. So when I was doing my bachelor's in physics, I did my thesis on the solar neutrino problem, and it's a theoretical astrophysics question. And experimentalists who work on the solar neutrino problem back in the day when they were doing this, they would create these huge swimming pools of a particular chemical that was able to record solar neutrinos. And so they're talking about how there are different experiments like this that we're engaged in, and the data that's showing up on all of these different experiments is anomalous, and it's letting the scientists know that, hey, this is not what you thought it was. And so that's one way that they're getting the information. And that kind of tracks with what I have found when I try to find any information about this from official sources. I can't find any, which doesn't make sense. When you have something this exciting for the space community, normally they're going to put out press releases on a regular basis because it's exciting and they want us to know that they're doing something important, right? And so the fact that they're not suggests to me that maybe that's some validation, for what I'm being told by 3iAtlas. I mean, obviously we're going to get validation eventually. So hopefully the information will come out eventually. So when I asked, like, where are you going? What are you coming for? They told me, but I'm not able to share that. But I can say that they're, in addition to communicating with us through our scientists, they're also communicating with the trees, and they're communicating with other life forms on our planet. And they're actually more focused on communicating with these other life forms than they are communicating with us directly. And another interesting point that I wanted to raise for people who are interested in channeling them or communicating with them directly is that you have to have a certain wavelength to be able to communicate with them. And they refer to it as lambda, which is from physics, which I thought was fun that they're using language that I was familiar with, from that field. And so it's about getting your wavelength, or you might think of it as your vibration, in alignment with them in order to be able to communicate. And they talked about that at length, about how on the planet right now, there are some of us, and we might call ourselves light workers or star seeds or healers, who are really tuning up our energy to try to get to a higher vibration. And then there are other people who clearly are not. And they said that they're really waiting for us to have kind of a critical mass of people who are elevating their energy so that not only they can communicate with these type of beings, but also so that we can make different decisions about our future. And the main message they were giving me had to do with our planet and how we're treating our planet. This isn't the first time that I've channeled a star being talking to us about our planet. Years ago, I talked to a type of being that looks like a praying mantis, and it's a matriarchal society. And I spoke to like the queen on their spaceship. This was over Sedona during a meditation. I left my body and was able to go up into their craft. So in Sedona, they do come and hang out a lot because there are those vortexes there. So anywhere you find these vortexes, anywhere on the planet, you're going to have star beings coming there to communicate with people. You're also going to have other beings, right? Like angels and different types of beings from the spirit world. But, you know, the praying mantis beings told me that years ago. They said, you know, you guys, you're destroying your planet and you need to stop. You need to stop causing so much damage to all of the life forms on planet Earth. And so this is the same message I got from 3iAtlas, that they were coming here on a mission that was related to other beings on our planet. And again, I can't go into the details of that, but they said that our role when it comes to communicating with us, they said our role is to change the way we are interacting with the other species on our planet, to start treating them with more respect, stop killing them, stop harming them, stop polluting, you know, the oceans and the forests and the lakes, right? And the mountains, and right, like we need to stop with that behavior. And they were pointing out to me that, you know, we're very, very concerned with our political situation, right? And we're really worried about where we're headed politically. And they were saying that, you know, in the same way that, you know, many of us are talking about how we need to envision the future we want to see politically, they were saying you also need to envision the future you want to see environmentally. Like you can't do one without the other. You know, we're destroying so many species. We're polluting so much on this planet that there's a crisis. And we have created this crisis that's negatively impacting all of these other species of, you know, plants and animals. And so we have to shift course. We have to shift course, and we have to start envisioning a different future where we have a different relationship to all of these beings. And so they talked about specific things we can do, like getting involved with environmental cleanup projects, or contributing to those projects, or helping to organize them or promote them in some way. Being directly involved really demonstrates to the star beings that we're serious about changing our future trajectory. Now, they did say that although they're not coming here primarily for us, and they're not coming here specifically to address our political situation, for example, that there are other star beings on their way. And they reminded me that, you know, a few months ago, right after the regime change, there were all of these, right, orbs and drones and bizarre things around us. And at that time, I was able to communicate and channel many star beings who were around the planet, and they were here to try to protect us from the threat of a nuclear war, because at that time there was a lot of talk and we were kind of on the brink. What they told me at that time is that anytime we get into a situation like that, where there's the threat of that type of weapon being used, they will always show up to deter it. And so they will actively prevent nuclear warheads from going off, and they'll do different things to make sure we don't do that, because that type of a weapon doesn't just damage our planet, but it damages our whole solar system. And so it impacts also interdimensional beings. And so when we mess with space-time on our planet, we're injuring not only all of these physical species like plants and animals and fish, but we're also injuring interdimensional beings who are in this same space, but they're either in a different time frame or a different dimension of the same space. But because it's all connected, when we use something like a nuclear weapon, it actually disrupts and fractures all of those layers of reality. And so we're negatively impacting all of these people who are not human. And we don't have a right to do that. And so anytime that happens, they show up. And so, you know, I actually get excited every time there's threats in the media about nuclear war, because I know, okay, our people are going to come back. Our space beings, our star beings are going to come back. Maybe they can save us from ourselves, right? Well, what they told me the last time they came is that they cannot save us from ourselves, but they can assist us. And the only time they can assist us is when we directly ask for assistance, kind of like the prime directive. And so when they came last time, they told me that while there were a number of us, like star seeds, like myself and light workers, who were asking for assistance, there were not enough of us. And there has to be kind of a critical mass of people who very clearly want a different future and are committed to a different future and are open and willing to receive assistance from star beings. So they kind of confirmed that. They said something similar about, we need to make, the way they put it is, we need to make our intentions really clear. And if they feel that our intentions are to change trajectory and to have a different future, one that's devoid of this type of interspecies destruction, nuclear war, the course that we're on right now politically, like, we have to make it clear, and we have to also banish fear. So they kept telling me, calm down, calm down, calm down. The problem with earthlings is we get all worked up, some of us do, about space beings and get scared. And so there's like all of this media, movies and TV shows and whatnot, books that have portrayed aliens as negative beings who are here to hurt us, to colonize, to conquer, to eat us, to take our planet, right? And all these narratives are really just projections from our own history, right? Because we have a history of doing all those things to people who are unlike us, going into their land, taking their land, enslaving them, killing them, eating them, right? I don't know if I'm allowed to say all these things. Hopefully it's okay. I'm just talking about fiction right now, okay? And this is for entertainment purposes only. I'm not claiming to have any facts about 3iAtlas. I'm just talking about my own experience having these interactions with them. And so, do your own research. But a lot of this media that we've been exposed to has created fear in the general population about these beings. And that fear is what keeps us isolated, because they don't want to scare us. They're not going to come here and do anything against us, against our will. They're like on standby if we need them, or if they need to interfere when we're going to do something that's going to harm lots of beings outside of our own societies. So they're not trying to create fear, and they're going to do everything they can to minimize that. And so that's why right now, like, the scientists are portraying this as a meteor, and it's just going to not come that close to Earth, and it's going to, fly by Mars, but not go that close to Mars, and then it's going to be gone, right? And that's the official narrative. And that's because people get freaked out when they hear about someone coming to visit us. But they have been giving the data slowly and adjusting their trajectory slowly so that we have time to adjust to the fact that they are headed here. And so I really wish that NASA and the European Space Agency and these other space agencies would share updates with the people so that we can prepare ourselves mentally for possible contact, right? We need to overcome this fear that we have. And it's going to be, mind expanding for us when we finally do have open contact. Okay, I want to share one more thing that I learned from them. And that was, when I was connecting with them, a large part of my connection with them was just me receiving healing. And in order to facilitate that, I was holding crystals in my hands to help them make the connection with me. Crystals are great energy conduits, and in some cases amplifiers. And so you can send energy through crystals, you can receive energy through crystals. And because it was beneficial, I thought I would share that, if you do think of yourself as a starseed or a light worker, or you're just open, that you might sit down and do a prayer of protection, go into a meditation, and hold some crystals and see if you can receive some healing as well from them. I do feel like, in general, their presence is going to be healing for us. I don't have the specifics of that, but the fact that the very first thing they did when they connected with me was to send healing, and they spent so much time on that, let me know what their intentions are. These are people who care about, they're healers. They care about helping us. And so we should view them that way, right? They're not here to start a war. They're not here to take anything from us. They're actually here to help. They did also say, if you watched my last video, they did also say, we're not here for you. And they were kind of saying, you are not our main focus of this trip. This trip is not focused on humans. That's not the purpose of their mission. I think we will benefit, but they have a different mission that's related to planet Earth and related to like the plants and animals. And they're not coming here to like interfere in our affairs or anything like that. But what they are coming here to do is beneficial for everybody who lives on planet Earth. And so I just wanted to share that as well. And I will share more if I'm allowed to share more, and I will probably connect with them again and see if there's, more information that they want me to share. They are being very cautious about how they're approaching and what kind of data they're sending and who they're connecting with and how, because again, they don't want us scared. They don't want us alarmed. They don't want us sending weapons. They don't want us freaking out. And so the impression I had of them, because of the kind of things like this that they told me, is that they're very caring, right? They're very caring and considerate beings who are trying to be very careful. All right. Well, I hope that was helpful. And, let me know in the comments if you have connected with them, if you have had similar experiences connecting to other star beings, if you are yourself a star seed, if you are a healer or a light worker who is interested in connecting with star beings, any dreams you've had about 3iAtlas, please share them. A lot of people like to read my comments. It creates a sense of community to hear other dreaming women and other dreaming people talking about their dreams and visions and their insights. Because, together we can get a better picture of what's going on. We can never really count on just one person to channel or to tune in psychically to information. We always want to count on really a community of intuitives and dreaming people to help us to understand a particular situation. Okay, thank you.